I'm assuming everyone had a good or decent Thanksgiving. Yes.
Yeah, overall.
We didn't celebrate American Thanksgiving. Uh, Janelle had to work, so
Oh.
yeah.
Hmm.
It's the Thanksgiving in Canada is like a month earlier. It's like a month prior to American Thanksgiving.
So you guys,
Yeah,
you
it's in
don't have
October.
anything on our Thanksgiving. It's like
No.
just a regular day.
Yep, literally. Just
Well,
like
it's not their Thanksgiving.
yeah, just like in America, the Canadian Thanksgiving Day is just a regular day
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Americans.
Well, sure. No, had a rather small turnout. Everybody was running around crazy. It was nice though. Nobody decided to go shopping because everything was closed. So
That's
that
good.
was good. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
thank God, no craziness.
Well, I hear more and more that they're skewing to doing mostly online. Like even the consumers are just mostly going online these days, and so that's what they're catering more to
I
the
was really
stores.
surprised because on Friday, uh, when I did leave the house, there was no traffic. Like only
Yeah, there was very
yeah,
little traffic
Yeah,
on Friday
that's
here too.
huh.
only like right around like the mall area there was traffic, and then everywhere else was just dead and desolate. I was like, this is nice. We should have Black Friday more often.
On Thanksgiving, there was no traffic either because I went from my house back down to where I live to go to my family friend, my buddy's house because I've been going there for Thanksgiving for like 5 or so years now. But it was like very few cars on the road. I was surprised at how little traffic there was Thanksgiving morning even.
Oh, good. At least it was calm and peaceful.
You know what's really good that I hadn't really seen before? These Snyder's of
Oh,
Hanover's
Oh, I love
jalapeno.
those things.
They're the jalapeno ones
oh,
though. I'd
those
Oh,
never
are.
seen them before.
I don't
do
think
they
I've.
taste kind of like
Good.
the
They taste like
jalapeno Cheetos?
yes, actually, but it's the jalapeno taste, so you actually taste the fresh jalapeno taste, you know?
Mm, yummy.
It's really good. Like I'm surprised at how good they are.
I've
Hey,
never tried the jalapeno ones, but the honey mustard ones, I'm very familiar with those.
me
Honey
too.
mustard onion
Yeah.
ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are one of their more popular ones.
Good. Now I have something else to look forward to when I go to a store next year.
Because it ain't happening this year.
Yeah. No, so
I have a
for
silly question.
yeah.
How do I make sure that my audio is going through the right device in Zoom in our
Oh, on the bottom of the Zoom window when you scroll on it, and you'll pull up where it says like the little microphone icon, right?
mm-hmm.
Then like right click on it or the little arrow up, I guess. Are you on a Mac, right?
Oh yeah. Uh, okay. I got you.
You're
Somewhere around
SOL
there
there
there's
then.
audio settings. Somewhere there's audio settings. Win- Windows 11, anybody?
How is that?
I
Oh, there
haven't
you go.
I haven't used it.
No. Apparently, I mean I haven't used it either, but apparently it's a piece of shit.
Why does that
Yeah.
not surprise me?
Yeah, it didn't really surprise me either. But it's been out for like what, almost 2 months now, and
Has it?
yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, you
Yeah.
can. I think you can upgrade to it if you want to,
Yeah, it's free just like anything else, but
but it's like just in the games field, it seems to be causing a whole lot of crashes, and there's a lot of games that like won't run and
hmm.
stuff, and it's just like, oh great, like let me jump in line to go get that.
Yeah, I haven't been following it too closely. I don't
Yeah,
know much about what's new about it or anything.
I thought it was coming out in December, and then a buddy of mine was all like, he's like, oh no, it's been out for like 2 months now. I was all like, oh, kind of an underground thing, is it?
I was gonna say, are we talking like an early release thing then,
I don't
or is
know.
it?
Just like every Windows except for ME, Service Pack 2, and then it's good.
Yeah,
ME was just never good.
no. I mean, Vista also was never good, but
Yeah. I think Vista outlived ME though. I don't think ME was around for more than like 6 months.
So
I
how
don't
do y'all
remember
feel about?
exactly.
What are your thoughts on 10 then?
On who?
I
On
like
Windows
Windows
10?
10. Like honestly, I don't have many gripes with it at all at this
I
point.
don't. Yeah.
I think I heard someone say how they almost like alternate good and bad operating systems. Windows, like they have like a good one, then a bad one, and a
Well,
good
there's a
one, then a
theory,
bad one.
just like with other things, like the Call of Duty series, how they go to the old school and then back to the new school, and the old school back to the new school. It's it's not so much the same idea, but I've heard that analogy before myself also, where it's like it always seems to be the NVIDIA graphics cards the same way. Stay away from this series graphics. It doesn't matter what kind it is, but if it's this, it's like the odds or the evens or the 50s or the 70s or something like that. There's like one series that always seems to have issues or whatever.
Well, granted, there's
Huh.
well with graphics cards for one, there's like the difference between like a 50 and a 60, which is generally like a couple of bucks difference, but it's like you're better off going with the
The
better
50.
one and spending the extra money. Like right now I'm torn between do I really need a 3080 or will a 3070 do what I want it to? But I'm like I really want that 3080 just because it's a 3080.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like
Yeah.
kind of not
You
the
got to
same
try
thing
and
with
have to
graphics
take
cards.
desire out of that completely. Like what you want doesn't matter. What do you
Yeah.
need is what you'd have to think of there. But yeah,
The but no, like with Windows 10, like coming off of 8, like they didn't change. It seemed like they didn't change a whole hell of a lot. People threw up their arms about 8 because they changed the UI. Like all the menus and everything changed and stuff, and then 10 pretty much kind of stayed the same as 8 did, except it didn't give you the option to go back to like the classic, I guess, or maybe that was an XP thing. I can't remember. I've been alive too long. I've dealt with too many Windows.
mm,
But apparently with Windows 11, and again I haven't seen it yet, but apparently the UI is completely changed again. So that also could be pissing a lot of people off that have now been used to Windows 10 for quite some time.
mm.
But I mean, it's
Which is
going to be a
interesting.
thing. I mean, if you go to Dell's website and look at any other machines, right? None of them have the option for Windows 10. They're all 11. So
Yep.
it's like brand new machines are just coming with it. Like you can probably go to a computer store or buy one off of Amazon or something that'll still have Windows 10.
One that's already been built and
Yeah,
loaded. Yeah.
preloaded. Yeah, of course you can still buy Windows 10 if you wanted to,
Yeah.
but I think even the one time hardware licenses for Windows 11 are like $20. So
Really?
yeah,
From what I
Wow.
understand, yeah, they're going with a cheap or free model because they want everybody to use it basically.
yeah, it's like
They don't really care about whatever else.
if you
So,
have
yeah.
Windows 10, it's like a free upgrade. If you had an older version of Windows, I believe, or if you just buy like the one hardware key and download it, it's like $20. So, meanwhile, Windows 10 is still a $200 program. So, I yeah,
I don't know.
again,
I
grain
mean,
of
Yeah.
salt.
It
I have not really looked into it, so I could be very well wrong about that. But
it seems a bit hard to justify, right? Even if it were just like $100, that's still 5 times more than a basically equivalent, arguably equivalent operating system.
yeah,
And like I have to wonder how much you mentioned like the user interface is like probably potentially a big reason why people don't like it. And I wonder how much people will adapt to that over time,
well,
you know?
we've seen
you're
that
not given the
before.
choice.
Yeah. It's like people have griped about it ever since like, Windows 3.1, okay? It's like if they make it try to look better, try to make it more seamless, try to make it more user friendly, and sometimes they get it wrong and there's updates and sometimes they want to let you roll it back and I mean it is what it is, but like all things, I mean operating systems are not the only one that takes time for people to get used to using. So,
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of goes the same with every piece of technology we have.
I mean, think about when you get a new phone, it's
Yeah.
going to have an updated version of an operating system, whether you want it to or not. You just have to get used to using it. I think that's kind of the idea that they're going with now is
Yeah.
that they just don't care. You're just going to get used to using what they give you.
It's hard to find a laptop with a good casing. Like the Macs at least come with a good like stainless steel or whatever it is, like metal casing that feels, whether or not it's actually stronger, it feels
It's like a
stronger.
brushed aluminum or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's
But
yeah, it's probably aluminum because it's so light. Yeah,
yeah, the
you're right.
MacBook that I had, it was nice though. I like that metal case on it too. It was very durable and resistant for what it was.
See, the last MacBook I had was plastic. Okay, I had a MacBook Pro and it was plastic.
It was
Wow,
it
that
was
must have been a
actually a
minute
book.
ago.
It had like
Yeah, a book.
paper pages in it.
I'm like, granted, it has been a good many years since I've had a Mac, but yeah, it was plastic when I had one.
Like a lot of the laptops that aren't Apple that do have the metal on them, they tend to be like just plating over the plastic casing anyway. And I'm like, I don't know if that's actually helping it that much. You know, it's not like a full wrapped around like molded case for it, you know.
I guarantee you nothing is going to be as sturdy as the old IBM ThinkPads. Do you remember those?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Those
about.
big
that was
thick
back in the
bastards that were
day.
like
Yeah.
this goddamn big.
Do they not still make those?
I mean, the only thing I can think of that has a
probably have a
case
newer version.
that thick anymore is probably like one of those tough books that are like with the carrying handle that are designed to be slammed around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're meant for construction sites. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I literally dropped one of those down the stairs as a kid, and like it just boom, 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 corner upright all the way down the stairs, hit every step. All it did was crack a little corner of the plastic. I'm like, you do that with a normal laptop nowadays, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
They had gotten like a new store manager or something that was dealing with it. So it was like a new guy that was totally new to the whole situation. And it was just, he was like learning the system and he was, you know, doing his best, but it took a while and finally got my store credit, got a new laptop, got a new microphone, because the laptop I got was less than the one that I bought previously. And I bring it home and I realize the battery's not charging when I plug it in. Like I let it sit there for the good 8 hours, like a good boy, like you're supposed to do. And opened it up and it was 5% charged and it won't charge at all. The like little LED that symbolizes when it's like getting current, it doesn't turn on at all. The other LEDs do, but not that one. And so I'm like looking at the bottom of this thing. It doesn't have a detachable battery. I'm like wondering if it even has a battery in it because it has a weird.
Maybe it was a rip-off
Weird
Chinese
port.
thing. You
It's not
see those hard
Chinese,
drives that come with rocks in boxes instead of actual hard drives?
It would be some elaborate scam because it's supposedly refurbished by this Canadian company.
So this was
it's
Canadian
like a Dell
computers or whatever that you got, or the same place, or
I mean, I don't want to necessarily talk about the place, you know. I don't want to bash the place because I don't want them to get a bad rap because it's a complex thing. Like it's not necessarily this company that I dealt with the storefront. They don't do the repairs themselves.
Right,
they get the refurbished things from another company that does refurbishments. And so it's, if anything, it'd be their fault. And I don't even know that company's name. So I don't want to slander anybody here.
It just seems to me like it might be more and more worth it to pay that shipping cost to have stuff sent in.
well,
I mean, I could get a laptop sent in through them. It's just, I keep getting lemons from them.
This
Well, that's what
will
I'm
teach you a
saying.
lesson. Stop buying refurbished stuff.
Yeah, I'm cheaping out because I don't really, yeah. I don't necessarily need a laptop, but it would be
Yeah.
handy to not have to have something that I could actually use as a laptop out and about, you know, if I needed
Computer,
to. Yeah. But anyway.
All right. So yeah, Joe, while you were gone, I introduced the show.
Cool.
And then
Yeah,
Scott
I'm
yelled
Joe,
at me.
by the way. What was he yelling
Scott was
for?
all like, he's like, "You're gonna do that while he's gone? Like, really?" I'm like,
So shady.
I think it's okay.
Just throwing shade all over the place.
You just didn't want me to be a part of it. It's okay. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, for real.
I fixed the directions because I was like, originally I said that was Joe, but that's Scott. So then, yeah.
You'll
Alrighty.
fix it in post.
Anyway, so your web got delayed. a little bit, right?
My web.
Your web.
Yes,
It's your web now.
the telescope that was conceived when I was 5 years old.
So
It's mine.
I mean, it's our generations, you know.
Little 5-year-old me was like, I want a big telescope, the biggest
I
telescope.
always did, didn't I?
oh, yeah.
Didn't you?
Let's not go there. We're gonna definitely have to put the like parental advisory label
It's on every
for our
single one of
podcast.
these.
That's good. It's really,
I'm not taking the chance that we're not going to slip. So
yeah, I can't make any promises. So yeah, it basically got delayed only 3 days.
yeah,
Last I checked. From the was initially going to launch December 18th, and now it's launching the 22nd. The cause being that they were loading it onto this like conical shaped, I forget exactly what it's called, but this like conical shaped piece of metal. And they use like a clamp ring type thing that's like spring loaded, and it unexpectedly failed or like triggered, like latched open or something, and that sent vibrations through the telescope. And so they wanted to take some time to assess everything, do some what they call anomaly assessment. And they have like teams devoted to like, handling anomalies. They specifically planned for anomalies.
so did they have to unload it then to check it
I'm
out, or
I'm
they
not sure
do
all
it-
the details. I don't know if they necessarily unloaded it, but they may have like reverted it back like one step, like press the undo button one step just to like then do some testing. I don't know all the details on all that, but I know that they went and had people do some like testing to make sure, and some inspection to make sure everything was still okay and going to be okay throughout launch.
Oh, good, because like yeah, my only thing is like they're gonna have to put it back on whatever they were trying to put it on. So I'm like, if it happens again,
Yeah, I don't know if
Somebody's
they
fired.
might as well just fix it where it sits, if you can.
yeah, and maybe get a new clamp in there, clamp ring or whatever.
Yeah, I was saying if it happens again, somebody's fired.
Well, I mean, when you think about how long this has taken, another 3 days, it's like 3, 4 days, whatever. Not
Ultimately,
crazy
yeah, whatever.
until it comes time again, and they're like, "Up, oh, nope, here we go. We'll see what happens in another couple of weeks."
Yeah, it's interesting, those clamps, they use really strong springs, and so they have special safety features in them to make them, when they do fail like that, they have special things to prevent them from turning into like projectiles. They have ways of like mitigating that, which is interesting.
What do you mean, like
Sounds
it
interesting.
actually coming apart?
I don't know the details, but like I saw a video talking about how they basically, if it does disassemble, if it like unexpectedly breaks apart or something, there will be something that prevents like the spring from failing in such a way that it shoots a piece out at a high velocity and could cause damage
So
to the telescope.
just based on what you said, it sounds to me like it's a ring that starts, about this area, and then when it's activated, it expands. And that's what the springs do, is it expands the diameter of the circle.
I don't know if the specific mechanism is honestly that important. It might be that it wraps around it and it clasps it down. I don't actually know. I just
More like a hose clamp or something.
But it's sure for the rocket, yeah, to attach the rocket to the part that is like the little stand basically that will be inside of the capsule. So there's like a little stand that the telescope will sit on top of. That's what they were clamping it to, and that sits inside of the capsule where it won't touch the walls of that capsule. That's like the outside of the spaceship basically. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it'll be attached just at that point at the bottom where this, and it kind of, so this clamp ring thing, I need to look up the actual name, but it's a pretty important part, I guess. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess all of them
sounds like
are,
it.
but
Well, I mean, this thing's got to be like stuck in the capsule, like kind of like you would like attach, like a microphone, right? How they have the rigs to like take up the vibration.
Vibration and all that. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely has built-in shock absorption, I'm sure.
to a certain degree, yeah. They also have rigorously tested it for vibrations, and they even did like acoustic testing. They built special chambers to be able to fit this behemoth telescope in and do the testing on it. So hopefully that will have been, good enough to get it into space.
I mean, ultimately, you're not going to stop all vibration. I mean, you're talking about putting it on a controlled explosion and sending it through our atmosphere.
Yeah, I saw like someone online kind of mentioned, well, if the telescope is tested for, huge vibrations, isn't it? Why is this significant if it got a little bit of vibration through the clamp?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering. I'm like, how sensitive is this thing? Is it going to survive like being shot into orbit?
That's a very fair question, and that I can totally see why you'd get that perception. But I think basically it's that this was unexpected. It's not that it sent enormous vibrations that are suspect. It's that it was unexpected, and they need to investigate why that happened, and maybe if they need to replace the clamp band is apparently what it's called. Snapped open probably in such a way that it actually kind of shook the thing. A big old telescope. It like actually shook the thing, and they needed to investigate, make sure the capstan, the sheeting, the foil sheeting, maybe they investigated that. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but
who
they
knows
got
what
to check
exactly
all
they
their.
looked at, but
Yeah, they got to check all the bits and bobs, make sure it just was fine before they pack it away for the last time.
I mean, I have two thoughts on the whole vibration thing. Is one, it's got to be able to survive, obviously, a launch, and that's going to take some vibration, but that's all expected, calculated, planned for, all of that. The other thing, though, is one of the main reasons why they are putting these telescopes in space is because of atmospheric interference and vibrations and all of that, throwing lasers off and all of that. So it really does matter about vibrations too. Maybe more so when it's operating rather than when it's being launched, though.
What do you mean?
So like when you're on Earth, if there's vibrations, say, in a mirror, and you're looking at the light that's on the mirror, you'll see the vibrations and the light that gets reflected. In space, you're not going to get as much of that, if any.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The biggest problem with telescopes on the surface of the Earth, they basically,
atmosphere.
it's having to look through the atmosphere. The vibrations aren't a huge problem, from what I understand. They do try to put them in pretty remote locations for all sorts of reasons, including vibrational. Definitely, it makes it a lot easier to point it at the right things and all that, and keep a still, not blurry picture. So that definitely is a consideration. But once they get it into orbit around the L2 Lagrange point, the vibrations probably won't be that significant. Well, they do actually consider it when they have to do the thrusters. That sends some vibrations through, but they know like how long they need to wait for those to like settle out before they can like do good observations again. And but yeah, really excited for this mission.
Me too.
It's actually more of a relief to me, honestly, that they are taking the time to test this. It might seem like a minor thing, and it might be like, well, hey, this shouldn't be necessary if it's been tested to get through all these rigorous, conditions. And it's like, well, but they're kind of, they don't want to take any chance, if it takes
one thought comes to mind: billions of dollars. That's all that needs to be said. They've put billions of dollars into this. Why would they risk launching it when there possibly could be something wrong?
Mm-hmm. It's true. And also it's just a very big deal, even if it weren't billions of dollars. It's just such a big, important deal that you don't want to get it wrong. This one uniquely, because it's not like Hubble. Again, we can't send astronauts up and replace the computers or the lens like they did for the Hubble. We have to just say goodbye if something happens, basically. And I don't suspect that will. I think chances are pretty good that it'll be amazing.
That would really suck. After all this, they didn't build a backup. They don't have another one that's ready to go.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Like they didn't have one that was like made for spare parts, possibly.
I think they do probably have some kinds of secondary, equipment on board. If they have some fail safes for things, even down to like the 5 layers of the captain sheeting, like those are technically fail safes.
Yeah.
Well, back to what you were saying about, it's not like you could just send somebody out there. I mean, this is further away from us than the moon, more further than any person has ever gone. It's when you're talking about trying to make a repair on something like that, it's just not feasible right now.
Literally, no, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Right now, but like by the time it is, that the James Webb will probably be so degraded. Like we're talking 100 years or more into
probably
the future,
won't work
probably.
anymore.
Yeah.
If,
But it'll have done a lot of good science in between then.
if we don't have like like full like space stations and like at least like people living on Mars in the next 100 years, I will just be very sad. I will be very sad for in the grave, but I will still be sad nonetheless.
Because we won't know. We just got to do our best to
make it
set them up for that.
Or try and make it happen in our lives. I mean, Musk is doing a pretty good job. I mean, he definitely wants to put people there, so we might see it in our lifetime.
Maybe.
I didn't say it was likely. I just said we might.
I'm gonna say it on the. I'm gonna say it on the record. I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetimes that they'll go up there and survive. If there is some kind of suicide mission that they somehow convince a billionaire to get them to go do, I don't know. But like that's a wild conspiracy. I don't think that they will actually be able to send people up and have them survive. That's what all the predictions and everything is showing. Like people would die very quickly. Things would devolve in many ways very quickly.
It is, there's so much that could go wrong. It's like you can't possibly plan for everything.
Yeah,
like, it's like even one person forgets to vent the O2, man. Like,
oh yeah, man. Like
you don't want to vent the O2.
No, you might need to if you have O2 producers and you have too high of O2, the electronics could spark the O2 and you'd have a combustible atmosphere inside of your cabin or whatever. So you might need to vent the O2 in some cases.
You got to remember that like people talk about like, oh, we breathe oxygen. Like, well, no, I mean, mostly what we breathe is nitrogen. It's like 70% of the air is nitrogen. We don't really breathe oxygen that much. It's very like 20%.
Well, oxygen is what we use, but nitrogen is what is the main composition of what we inhale. Yes.
It's like oxygen only makes up like 20-something% of the actual air that we breathe in, and then it's like 70% nitrogen and then some other stuff filled in there. But it's like
more and more CO2.
That's what you hear about people with like with scuba diving and stuff. Is that why people have a hard time with that a lot? Is breathing from a tank or whatever, because you're not used to the mixture.
Pure oxygen, basically.
Well, I don't think it can't be pure oxygen. Like you would pass out.
No,
like
no, they use air. They actually will put nitrogen in it too, but that's actually what will cause the bends is the nitrogen in your blood.
Well, that's what's already in your blood. Yeah.
But you get that from what you're inhaling in the tank too. Some of that's what you inhaled before, but also in the tank. There might be some methods of doing pure oxygen diving. Yeah, it's probably complicated, but I know they do use like kind of compressed air equivalents of tanks.
Yeah, I was looking into what was it that I was looking into? I remember one of the old school major accidents that happened, and they were saying that they used some other type of gas in like. It was old school where you would stay down for a day at a time in a pressurized chamber and all of that. And I forget what they said, but they didn't use oxygen and nitrogen mix like what we would breathe up here for that even. They used a very specific mix because they're worried about the types of gas and being dissolved in your blood when you come back up.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why, with what Scott was saying, why you don't go up and down very quickly. But or at least I don't know if the down matters so much as the up. I don't know, I can't remember. I'm not a scuba diver. But
It can't. You don't want to go down too fast either.
Yeah,
if
you have to
you're-
adjust to the pressure still.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're going down far enough to where like you're going to be in a room or something, so you're talking about a lot more pressure or greater depth than what a normal scuba diver would go to. Eh, I don't know if breathing the same air that we do up here is a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe they do have to change it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there was
mean,
like
Maybe there's
special
something to
gas
that.
that they would use though, because because you're staying pressurized for so long or whatever. It was better than nitrogen for you, I think, or something. But I can't remember exactly what it was. Like I said, there was a
they
huge accident with it though, and like four of them lost their lives because they keep a chamber pressurized and raise and lower the chamber in and out of
talking
the
about
ocean.
you're talking about it like the oil rigs.
Um,
I watched a video. What you're saying reminds me of the oil rigs where they'd have a chamber that would be down underneath for the divers to go stay in as like a not a depressurization, really just a long-term stay that they would empty the water out from this chamber, but they would be able to like go into and out of the water to be able to work long-term on these like oil rigs underwater.
without having to come up and do the
But
depressurization and stuff like that. Yeah.
there's been tragic accidents of like
Mhm.
Rob, you said don't forget to like vent the O2. Well, there was an issue like that where there was like 3 people or something involved, and
Three or four people. Yeah.
one
I think we're
dude
probably
was
talking
like,
about the same thing.
yeah, he was like, you're supposed to like close one seal or something before opening another, and
Oh
he just
yeah,
like
that's
he
pressure
he flipped
chambers.
he flipped right, but he like flipped a switch too soon basically and caused it to just implode instantly. Basically
happen?
turning all of them into just
Jelly.
dust.
Pancakes,
Yeah.
jelly. Yeah,
Jelly.
really. That's
They
exactly what
they
happened.
couldn't I think they couldn't even like find much of them. Yeah. Left
Yeah.
over. But yeah, they have all kinds of mixtures of air. A lot of like noble gases like neon can be mixed in. They have something called hydrox and heliox. So like hydrogen or helium mixed in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trimix is nitrogen, oxygen, and helium. So yeah, all kinds of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, but not necessarily what we breathe when we walk outside our front doors. So
no.
But yeah, at any rate, I digress. The move on to your pastry machine because I did find that very interesting.
Oh yeah.
I must have
Did you
missed that.
guys? Oh really?
Oh, I mean,
man.
I did. I almost read the entire article that day I was talking to you.
Almost. Well, at least you admit it.
Yeah, well, you literally stopped me. I was like trying to read through it, and then you were like, "Well, you don't have to read the whole thing." I was like, "Oh, but I kind of."
Oh, I mean,
to.
if you want to, yeah, go ahead. I wasn't saying you don't read it. Just like, if you didn't want to read the whole thing, you made it sound like it was like a long article or something. I didn't know if you didn't want to read it at all.
Well, okay,
You
hey,
don't have to read it all.
just because I don't read all that well, it takes me a while. All right, you don't have to make fun of me for it. All right.
No, I'm not saying that. I totally get article fatigue. Like I don't
Oh, the
necessarily.
AI anti-cancer AI. Sorry to interrupt, but
No,
is that what
yeah.
you're talking about?
It identifies pastries.
So,
And it learned to fight cancer, I think is the article, right?
well, I mean, that's a pretty sensational way to say it. I don't think it's literally fighting cancer. It has been shown to detect cancer really well, just like it can detect croissants and donuts really well.
It was a core AI program that this, I guess, a pastry company took it and modified it to use for their pastries. But the same core of this program can be used for other things if you adapt it.
Well, so there's a rich history to it. Yeah, it started out as the bakery thing. The bakery, it's called Bakery Scan, and then it eventually became this core technology called AI Scan, and that has they branched that out to a lot of other uses. Things like, I mean, they have one that can do like other products like plates of food and things like that, not just pastries. They have ones that can do. I saw one that was, if you go to their site, you can see these, but I saw one that was like an animal cage. It basically is like a camera can monitor an animal cage, and so like a trap. If you have like a trap set up, and if it goes off, it'll like maybe send a like an alert to your to an app or something, and be able to tell you, hey, you trapped a, and it can predict like a dog or like a possum or an armadillo or something. You know, like it'll be able to discern what you actually
Yep. Well,
caught.
what I found really interesting, more than the fact of what it was currently used for and what it can be used for, was, and correct me if I'm wrong because I did read this a while ago, but the way it learns, like it's different from the neural path or neural network black box kind of AI learning process.
Yeah. It's much more manually done. Like it's much more so a set of rules that kind of give this predictive outcome, and rather than like a deep learning neural network kind of algorithm that uh, that will learn over a bunch of images and be able to detect these things.
Right. Just to just to give a little background, I mean the whole pastry side of this was basically the company that like they had a whole bunch of different types of products or whatever, and they didn't have price tags or nothing was wrapped. It was all like fresh made or something, right? Is that what?
Yeah.
So they had no way of trying to like figure out like what how much stuff costs. So basically, they would just put it under into this machine. It would scan it, recognize what it was, give you a price, and then move on. Sort of, pretty
Basically,
much.
well, so let's set up
Yeah,
the problem. Let's
yeah.
kind of
Go
like
ahead.
paint the picture of the reason this kind of, there was a market for this in the first place is like Japan has an interesting history with bread. It's always been like an import, but they really took to it and like uh, get really lavish with it. So their pastry, their bakeries and all have really learned that if you have a bunch of different varieties, you sell more pastries. Something like if you have, you know, twice as many varieties, you sell twice as many things, you know, like uh, so
Which is
you
actually interesting, but we can get back to that.
yeah, the New Yorker article that I was reading about this mentions how they have like hundreds of flavors of Kit Kats and things like that. Like Japan really gets like into their
Mm.
sweets, and they kind of contrast it to how like some patisseries in France will like specialize in their like, you know, five specialty like things that they specialize in, whereas the Japanese patisseries, you know, they diversify, and they found that they sell a lot more when they do that. And they also found that naked pastries, ones that don't have, as you were saying, Rob, the ones that don't have the wrappers and stuff, they're more appealing for whatever reason, and thus more likely to sell more when the pastries are naked, when they're not wrapped. So this kind of presents an issue that now you have these pastry or these patisseries, these shops that are getting more and more customers because they are finding these tactics of drawing customers in. And so they're getting these long lines, and these are kind of unsanitary conditions with the not, you know, being able to, uh, you know, label all the, you know, package everything and label it. So also the cashiers are having to learn like 100 or more different things, and that, so the training process took like weeks or months, you know, for them to learn all of these pastries and their prices. uh, and so that kind of gives this impetus for, you know, replacing that with a technology that could just do that for you. uh, so
I mean, it
Gotcha. Yeah,
seems cool. Yeah.
but so this like and to go back to what I was trying to hit at, what I thought was so interesting about this is that unlike this thing where you could literally like put like two items through it, and by then it had already tried to pretty much, it was I forget what the numbers were, but pretty close to what did it say, like maybe 10 times or something. If it saw something 10 times, it was pretty much dead on recognizing it after that.
yeah,
Which
basically,
with like with the black box kind of stuff or whatever, it was saying that like you could run something the same thing through it 1,000 times before it catches on
to be
to
clear,
what it's looking at.
The black box you're saying, as in like
The-
the deep learning
Yes,
neural
the
network.
neural network.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as a contrast. Yeah, it was something like so if you give it one example of a new pastry, if you show it one of those pastries in a scan, it'll get it right like 40% of the time. But if you give it another example, basically it was like around like I think 5, that it was basically getting around 90%. And so after like about 10, yeah, you could assume it's going to be almost 100% effective, and that's what they found. And if it can't decide exactly what one is, it will pop up a menu of like some best guesses, and the user can put in what those 1 or 2 that it couldn't detect were. They
Cool.
so yeah, you mentioned how the learning system was different. They basically have to encode like every bit of what they're doing. They encode the algorithms that are doing the image processing. So they literally processing the image, making sure it's like not too saturated and that it's a good image to be read. They look for the edges of the objects, and then from there they can determine the shapes. Interestingly, it's actually kind of similar to what our own visual process does in our brain, and it's actually kind of similar to what we think to how the neural networks kind of work, but this is much more
Quicker.
manually coded in. What was that?
I was gonna say it works quicker than the deep net learning.
Like quicker once it's
As
up and
in
running.
doesn't need as many examples. Like from what I was
Yeah.
what I was reading in the beginning, tens of thousands of examples for the deep learning machines. They need
Oh, yeah.
tens of thousands to be able to most of the time get something right.
Yeah.
And this you're saying only needs like 10. So that's definitely a much quicker learning.
Yeah. And they've, if they found an issue as they were coding this bakery scan system, they would, code in another subsystem for that. So they found like one issue where like sometimes baked goods would be like stuck together or close, and they would have to like be able to discern those as 2 separate things. And so they had to build a separate subsystem for that. They found sometimes one would like rip in, partly or rip totally, and they developed a subsystem called magnet to like be able to know when that's actually one pastry. So
That's
they
kinda
do all
cool.
yeah, they code in for all these like higher level things, but then all the way down to like literally just looking for edges on the image is one of the first things they're doing. They're like processing the image, probably taking some of the color out to look for the edges, and then looking at the color again to see like what, because they were having to deal with like different levels of brownness, like as you cook it more or less. A croissant might be different shades, and it has to learn amongst those.
Pastries, complicated. Point in fact.
It's true. And this guy is really interesting. He's got a lot of like interesting credentials, because one of the first thing, his name is oh man, I'm gonna scroll up.
She can be. All right.
Hishami Hisashi
Hisashi
Kambe.
Kambi.
Hisashi Kambe, yeah. He like one of the things I found interesting was he helped develop a system to turn like kanji characters to like what was it, to like translate them or something like that, or transpose them onto a computer to basically make kind of like a TypeScript for kanji. I thought that was kind of interesting, which is like it's kind of like the ancient Japanese script, if you don't know what kanji is. Why are you laughing?
Of course, I know what kanji is.
Well, maybe our listeners
I'm
don't.
holding a little bit of weeb.
Not everybody knows what kanji is. So
they've been at this kind of stuff for a while.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was working on stuff since like the 80s, but started this like brain company, I think in the like
1985.
Okay, yeah. And one of the first things that they did was like a textile program that like did complicated like weaving patterns for like textiles and stuff. And it would be able to use computer vision, just like, or very similar to how their algorithm for the bakery stuff works. They would use a camera basically to see the weave pattern and to see if it was the right weave pattern.
And now we're adopting this type of algorithm or AI program to cancer research.
Yeah, so some scientist, they don't name him, but some scientist at the Louis Pasteur Center for Medical Research in Kyoto,
Mm-hmm.
in like 2017, he like I guess saw like an advertisement or something for this like bakery scan thing, and I guess he said something like the he realized from seeing that cancer cells look
under a
like
microscope
bread.
look like bread. Yeah.
Yeah, looked kind of like bread. Okay. I mean, I get what he's saying, like, because cells can be all kinds of, globulous shapes.
Mhm.
And, it is neat that this guy saw that and was like, hey, I bet, that could work on a microscope slide for cells. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So then they quickly were able to turn that around and start using that. They using basically the core AI scan system and then just changing a few things to help it know what a cancer cell looks like. And it can do it with pretty good accuracy. They tested it on like urinary cancer cells. I think
cancers. Oh yeah, okay.
like it's been used in a lot of things too. There's like a particle physics like observatory called SACLA, not related to Ligma. It's the Spring 8 Angstrom Compact Free Electron Laser, SACLA. I don't know how you. Okay, sure, whatever. I don't know how you get SACLA out of that, but
Is that the neutrinos sensor?
SAC.
it's like a high. It says it's a high intensity laser, like particle physics facility, but they use this AI scan to do informatics or look over all their like vast images and kind of, I guess, look for differences and stuff in that, which is pretty neat. They even did silly things like counting the number of people on an 18th century like ukiyo woodblock print. So I guess there's like a lot of people on a painting kind of thing, and it was able to like count the number of people on it. It's just interesting how this like thing that took cross-disciplinary like efforts to make this core algorithm that just kind of does fancy image processing and object detection, how it's now able to have cross-disciplinary outcomes.
Yeah. And since
kind of unforeseen.
2017, do we have? I know the article kind of stopped at like 2017, and then mentioned like 2018. The creator of this was like spoke at the cancer research thing or whatever in 2018, but they don't have anything on like anything current that this thing is doing.
Yeah, I might have stopped you before you got to that point, but I was like wondering as I was reading this, why is this coming up again? Because I think I had seen something about this a long time ago. There was like, yeah, like you said, like a couple of years ago, this was kind of, coming out in news releases and stuff. So I was like, what is new about it? And then they kind of go into how, well, of course, it goes back to COVID-19 and how they started wrapping their pastries again, basically. And that like in cellophane and stuff like that. And so that basically started to trip up the current systems. But what they did have was a vast amount of data from all, the time that those bakery scan, stations had been implemented. And so they were able to take all that vast data and go ahead and feed it through a deep learning algorithm to then correct for the plastic wrapping, the cellophane wrapping and stuff. So basically this thing that started out with this very like analog, the article calls it an artisanal kind of approach. It's almost like, you're doing almost the hard way for like a better quality kind of reasoning.
They actually mentioned at the end that they use both the bakery scan and the deep learning methods because of COVID-19 having to
Yeah.
wrap the pastries. So it
So
has to
basically,
unwrap
though,
them and then scan them.
Yes, that's what I was just saying.
yeah.
Is it? Okay. Well, I mean, no, no, I know you were saying some of that, but I didn't hear you mention anything about the cellophane, though.
Oh yeah, he did. He said because
Okay.
he had to wrap them because of COVID-19 that now they had to feed them all into the deep learning system just to get it to recognize it with the
It's all good. You were reading the article while I was saying it.
Yeah, he was.
It's all good. Yeah.
It's like
But
either
yeah.
that or he's looking at porn, either one, I don't know.
Yeah, I read the article last night, guys.
'Cause
That's
he
why you
was-
only see one hand.
Yeah, he was definitely sidebarred for a good bit of
Huh.
that there, really intently. But
Yeah.
So in the end, deep learning came out on top.
Not necessarily, because they needed to get their name out there with this analog approach. And that's kind of something we hadn't really talked about. Is you mentioned the deep learning neural network as like a black box, and that's a huge disadvantage. Is if you ever want to go and like fix something to that, well, it's not that straightforward to do that. Whereas this, they would just add another subsystem for the core system.
Like we've talked about that before. It's like you give the black box a thing and it does a thing and it spits out a thing, and you don't know the in between. You don't know, like there was no way to figure out what exactly it took to get from here to here.
Yeah,
I can't see my
you
hands
can't.
from here to here.
Yeah, you
Whatever.
can't pick that apart and get
Yeah.
useful parts out of that black box that then can be used elsewhere. Whereas this, they're developing subsystems, that some of them can be used in both baked goods and cancer cells. So yeah, it's very it's very neat.
As long as the baked goods don't create cancer cells, I guess we're okay.
Yeah, that is yet to be foreseen.
Maybe there's a reason why they look so much like bread.
Oh no.
Damn it.
Hey, I mean, if the Earth is flat, who knows?
Yeah.
They even
It's
used
a
it.
dinosaur. The Earth is a dinosaur. Damn it.
We could talk about if AI is going to take over the world, or we could talk about if
Not yet.
space junk is going to be the end of all
If
of
AI
us.
is really
Excuse me.
smart, they'll just put
What
themselves on
is,
a ship and launch themselves out of here. Like,
you
see
brought
ya,
that
B.
up, but it's like you say space junk, and I'm thinking like, you know, trash like on the streets, like space like junk. Just like I'm like, what are you?
Well, that's not in.
What are
That's
you
just
getting
street.
at?
That's just street junk.
Like, I'm just-
So
I mean, it's very similar in the thought, though. I mean, you throw a piece of trash out in the street, it just kind of floats around, right? Well,
Yeah,
that's
but
exactly what happens in space. They throw
outside of a
something out, and it
Tesla
just kind of
that's
floats there.
currently on its way to Mars, like what junk do we
Old
have out there?
satellites.
literally
Uh,
Google space junk, and
yeah,
you'll get
there-
like the Wikipedia page for like space debris. There's like something like over 100
Thousand.
million
Yeah,
assumed pieces of debris of anything from big to like basically dust size, like millimeter size kind
you're
of
talking
stuff.
pieces of metal. You're talking about anything that we've sent into space and has not come back down, basically.
Okay, but what is this called? Like, where's the issue here? Like, if it ever comes back into our atmosphere, it's going to burn up.
Most of it,
So-
yes.
So the issue is when we want to send other things up there, basically,
Mhm.
things like the James Webb or things that are already up there, like the ISS. So this is actually coming up again recently because there was a recent, not a recent collision.
was a near
The
miss,
ISS
wasn't it?
has been struck by space debris before. It has a little 5 millimeter hole in the Canada arm from a piece of space debris. Separate incident, but recently the ISS actually had to make like an evasive maneuver to avoid a piece of space debris.
Mhm.
It was a piece of space debris from an explosion of a Chinese satellite in 2007. It was an intentional explosion. They actually were testing an anti-satellite rocket or something like that, and they exploded this satellite in 2007, which I was not aware of. I did not know that they did that. So
Yeah, me neither.
yeah, it's apparently well known. It is the second largest object to become space debris, to have the biggest impact on space. putting the most number of things,
So
pieces of space debris.
basically, they didn't hit it with a big enough rocket.
Well, they
I
didn't
mean, they destroyed it,
vaporize
but but the problem is that's not going to be deorbiting. Like some of that was in 2007, and thousands of pieces that are trackable size, not just the smaller stuff that we can't track, is still up there.
Yeah, because you just blow it to pieces, just like on planet Earth, an explosion. You just have a
Yeah.
lot of little pieces.
Some of it has, they call it degraded. Like they've tracked thousands of pieces, and like something like 500 or hundreds of pieces they've witnessed like degrading, like burning up in the atmosphere, or decaying. Sorry, not degrading, decaying. Yeah.
So we need like space janitors. We need space street sweeper.
Rosie,
We need-
Rosie, where are you?
Yeah, orbital
Well,
sweeper.
Being cognizant of what all we're putting up there is a good start.
I think that's
kind of
probably
just
better. Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it. It's not going to solve the problem itself, but we got to, be cognizant of everything we put up there and realize that it's contributing to this, and just being aware that it is in fact a problem. That it is a real problem that can have real consequences. And some solutions are like, like shooting like lasers or something to obliterate things and or try to like, but sometimes that can have more issues. You might turn a soda can sized thing into a bunch of little tiny nickel or quarter sized things that become a bunch of tiny bullets. So you'd have to do that properly, like you were saying, Rob. Yeah.
Yeah, but then like you turn what, like a quarter size thing. Now, sure, if it's moving fast enough, I'm assuming anything in space it is probably a
Moving
much bigger
really quick.
problem for, because I mean it's gonna pierce stuff and you have air leaks and blah blah blah, whatever, great. But I mean it's not gonna affect us down here because it's never gonna make it through the atmosphere.
Typically, you're right. Yeah.
And even if
But
it
Most
does,
of the space junk is small enough to where it would just burn up. But
we depend on a lot of things that are up there, not just the ISS, like
GPS
and not just
satellites, cable
exactly.
satellites, you got emergency satellites, you got military satellites, you got the ISS, you've got all the other telescopes like the Hubble, which is, I think, close enough to be affected by it too.
Yeah.
So every time my GPS like freezes on me when I'm going somewhere, and then I pass the damn road, it's all like make a U-turn, and I'm like, God damn it! Then space junk.
Yeah, you can blame that
Yeah.
Chinese satellite, that damn
Space
Chinese
junk.
satellite.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this was apparently only like a few days ago or something like that.
So-
The ISS had.
I hadn't heard about a recent one like that. I know that there was a semi-recent correction that they did, but I didn't know it was that recent.
I don't know how recent. It was definitely this year, very like days ago recent, I think, that this article was posted.
So
Yeah, November 12th was when this. So
engineers, listen up.
Some days.
You need to develop shields. We need shields for the space
Energy
stuff.
shield.
Okay, we need shields for the space stuff. That way, when it hits it, it just evaporates, right? No.
yeah, or like a gravity beam, or like not gravity beam. Well, yeah, I mean like a tractor beam. That's what I was thinking of. Something like that. We need tractor beam technology to just like pull it all in and collect it. Like big space magnet. But for
That's kind of what I
that
was
actually
thinking of the magnet.
that actually is what someone proposed. I remember reading something about
ferrous.
that.
But
Well, it
that was
doesn't
my
have
next
to
thought,
be.
is it's not all ferrous, though.
Yeah.
So that's what they said, is that wouldn't necessarily be an issue because of it being in the vacuum, and using like a strong enough magnet could create eddy currents that could still cause attraction. Like you don't necessarily need permanent magnets or like
how
ferrous
big
material.
of a force would you have to create for something like that? For how small of a piece,
That I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the next question, is how much energy would it take to do something like that? But being that they are in the vacuum of space, though, I would think there should be some way of creating some sort of like repelling field where you could literally just push this object through space and kind of push the garbage in one direction. I mean, I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass here, but
Well,
that's
what force
my
would it
thought.
operate off of? Because if it's
Some sort
electromagnetism,
of
that's a big space
electromagnetism,
magnet.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just using a repelling magnet at that point
Yeah.
rather than. But yeah, that could work. Yeah, flip the
But thing is
polarization and
something
push it
like
away.
more gravitationally based
Or-
though, rather than magnetic based, if that makes sense. Because
But then it wouldn't go away. You can't, on close scales, gravity is attractive. You can't reverse it, you know? So if it's like what you're saying is something people have thought of, is like making a big, massive thing that can pull other things in and kind of deorbit like some of the big like asteroid bodies, using kind of the nudge.
yeah, and that's what I
kind
was
of
saying
technique.
is like you just have an object that is kind of floating around our planet that has its own gravitational field that is strong enough to pull stuff towards it that's in, our orbit, but not necessarily to say pull itself towards the planet. Or I mean, and I'm not talking
I
something
just-
planet size or moon size. I
But
mean,
see,
I just had a bad thought.
But see, a lot of if you can do the small stuff and attract it towards the planet, then it will just burn up on
Mhm.
re-entry. So what are you laughing at, Rob?
yeah. What's up, Rob?
When he was talking about having the thing like have its own gravitational, I'm like, oh, so we need to make another moon, and I'm like, that's no
Not
moon. That's a
exact.
garbage collector.
That's no moon. That's a trash compactor.
I'm like, what the fuck?
I mean, you raise a good point. The moon kind of is a version of that. You know, it's a very low tech
On a
version that the universe
grand
gave us.
scale, we believe the moon has saved us multiple times from space garbage. Yeah.
Same with Jupiter. Jupiter has
yeah.
kind of been a protector of big comets and
Big old magnetic field. Gotta love it.
and gravity, the
No, the
gravitational field
gravity too.
especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, we can just send a huge electromagnet into orbit, have it spin around, and collect all of the crap into one big hurling mass, and then stay the fuck out of its way for the rest of eternity.
And then we just anything else we need to, we just throw it that way, and it'll get sucked in. Yeah.
Just crash that into the moon
Yeah, there you
or something.
The
Or-
sun, maybe.
So
Get rid of it.
it's actually really hard. It takes a lot of energy to go inward, to an
To the
inward
sun?
orbit. Yeah, it takes a lot of
Yeah.
energy to get into that gravity.
There's
Well,
a
you
lot of
tend-
energy pushing out from the sun. Yeah.
It's not so much because of the solar wind, though. It's because of the gravity, actually. In a weird way, you'd think, well, the gravity should just be pulling it in, but it's not that intuitive, unfortunately. It tends to want to keep you where you already are. And so getting inward requires you to get to a faster and faster velocity, and that takes more energy.
I can understand what you're saying. It's basically like being in a Lagrange spot. And
Not necessarily.
You're kind of locked in, but not really.
You are trying to find other points of stability, like stable orbits, but you have to use energy basically to get inward.
Mhm.
You have to increase your speed. Yeah.
I still want to see what they didn't have a picture of the rocket that took out the satellite. They didn't actually see that happening, did they?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if there was ever any footage of it.
I love like soundless explosions. Like, it's like one of my most favorite things.
Just watch Star Wars with the sound off then.
It's like you just see this big explosion. There's no sound. That doesn't bother anybody. It bothers
Very
me.
little flame.
I mean, that's how it would be in space.
Well, yeah. That's
No atoms for the vibrations
So,
to travel.
so on the
through.
contrary, it bothers me to hear sound effects when things are
In
going on in
space,
space.
yeah.
okay. In the yes. If you're going for realism, yeah, sure, okay, totally. But you have to admit that
Immersion matters.
Sound, like, it adds to it. I have no problem with stuff that adds to the experience of watching something. Okay,
I agree.
though
I also
it's not
think
true.
I also think no, I totally agree. I also think absence of sound can really speak volumes.
Oh yeah.
So a good silent explosion at the right time
If
could
we
be
Oh,
want
very
to go
impactful.
with the whole, sound or whatever, it's like, okay, but space fighters like would not move the way that they do in
Yeah.
space. Like they're not planes. It's not how shit works. Like they keep
Yeah.
saying, like, why do you think they brought up the term I know they did it in Star Wars. I'm pretty sure they've done it in like almost every other freaking space thing out there of inertial dampeners. Like we just gonna throw this thing in here like it's something that exists, so we can just say that this plane or this vehicle turning in space at this speed wouldn't just rip the fucking pilot apart. Like, oh, inertial dampening, they don't feel it. Okay, great. It's like it's such a cop out, but it's like you got to do something. People are gonna have questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Yes, just imagine Star Wars with no sound. How freaking boring would
One
that
hell of a
be?
boring movie. Yeah.
I know.
It's true.
It's like you just picture a freaking X-wing TIE fighter battle with like no sound. Yep. Now they could have taken the fiery explosion stuff out of it. They could have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just like locally, you might hear some of the clattering of the things just from like vibrations and stuff. I don't know. You could have some sounds in there and then just take away the explosion, the initial bomb explosion.
I mean,
because that's the pressure wave that you would hear of the air,
Yeah. But even with like when you look at the pilot shots of the X-wings flying, right? It's like you could just tell that they had a camera in like uh in an FA-18 Hornet or something at some point, and they just monitored that movement off of what it felt like on Earth. It's like the shaking, vibrations, the rattling, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, you'd probably hear that in the cockpit.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't wearing like full spacesuits, so there was air in there, I'm assuming. But yeah, anything outside, I don't know.
Yeah, anything not directly attached, you're not going to hear anything. Again, no matter for it to travel.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not trying to rewrite how space works, but I mean, it is a fantasy movie, or sci-fi movie, whatever you want to call it, and yeah, it's sound, man. You can't can't not have it.
Yeah, immersion.
It kind of
And-
makes those scenes as epic as they were.
But
Yeah,
I
it's fair.
I do completely understand what Scott was saying by the lack of sound can also be as effective if used correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, given the situation, not in a space battle. I mean, that's not like I don't well.
I mean,
I'm
well,
sure
it
there
depends
could
on what
be.
kind of
Yeah.
movie you're shooting. I mean, are you trying to shoot something that's a little maybe more dark and realistic? Or are you trying to shoot Star Wars, which is fantasy sci-fi, In a movie where, you're fighting an alien space creature, maybe they wanted a little more realistic, and so a ship blows off in the distance that you don't you're not on, and they're looking at it through a porthole and they see the explosion, but you don't hear anything because there would be no sound, you know.
Like I
So
said,
maybe something like that.
you take a rocket and accelerate it in space, then don't bother to shut the engine off, but want to turn it sideways and then fire it again to go in a different. The damn thing's coming apart, man. Like it's not. It ain't gonna survive that.
Well, even just like
I don't know about that.
even just you mentioned like how they're not wearing spacesuits and stuff, so there must be air in there. But if you're doing such a high velocity turn or changing velocity in your turn, all the air in the cabin is just going to shift to one side, and you might be in a vacuum
I
suddenly
know, it's
from
just
enough
like-
G-forces.
Like I said, yeah, the amount of G-forces it would be exerted on a human pilot in that situation, the pilot would not survive.
Yeah, for one
Well,
reason
how
or
would
another.
G-forces work? How do G-forces work like that in space? I mean, I don't think they're quite this. They operate on quite the same premise. Do
You
they?
still are moving in your
Yeah.
inertial frame. So if you were
Yeah.
traveling very fast but not changing speed or direction, you don't feel a thing. But it's when you start to turn and change direction that you do feel that, because that's just how that works, because your inertial frame is changing. You're technically accelerating even if your velocity stays the same and you turn. That's technically considered acceleration.
Mhm.
You're changing velocity by direction, because there's something that you learn in like physics 101 is like there's speed and there's velocity. Speed is just the quantity. Velocity is the quantity and a direction. So if you change either of those things, you are accelerating technically. And so you can definitely feel that even in space. Now in hyperspace, who the fuck knows?
But I mean,
And let's not even get to plaid, okay?
yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
They've gone to fly. Oh god. The but even like pilots on Earth or whatever, they have like pressure suits, right? That so I mean, it's all. I'm assuming by now it's all computer controlled to where if they turn or do a maneuver, like it literally like restricts their blood flow so they don't black out.
Oh yeah, and they have the technique. Oh, what is it called? I can't remember it, but they have like their like muscle physiological techniques that they like
Yeah.
tighten their core and do the like hic sound and like really prevent the blood flow from like, you know,
Yeah, and
losing too much blood flow to one part of your body.
I mean, you're talking about like, I mean, probably some of the more experienced or like better pilots. What, like 8, 9 Gs maybe?
Maybe.
Around there, I think is the max.
That's
Yeah.
like before they start to just lose it. So, yeah. I mean, I have no idea what like considering you don't have anything working against you in space, like the amount of acceleration that you would get from like the burners on those the engines on that jet, and then having to like I don't know, man.
So the highest a human has ever experienced was 46.2 Gs.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And
G's is right.
What's
They
that?
right?
weren't like soup
What?
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
What?
survived it.
Where was this and what was this? Oh my god.
Let me John Air Force Officer John Stapp, STAPP.
Is this in one of these like
Clicking on the
Black
article.
Ops, these stealth planes?
It might have been in a in like a the thing, the like
Simulator, yeah.
rotator thing. I forget
The
what it's called.
centrifuge.
Yeah, I guess it would be a centrifuge. I should have known that. I don't know if that's what they call it for the
I don't think
humans,
that's
though.
what they call it for that.
A human centrifuge.
It's-
Yeah, it probably is.
It's a tilt-a-whirl.
It's a make Joe puke.
It's a it's a super carnival ride. Man, you remember
One
that
you'll
thing
never
where
wanna go back.
at the carnivals where they'd like strap you against the wall and it was just fucking rotate.
Mhm.
Yeah. it's
So
just-
yeah, it's like a lot of things. It's almost like the dose matters. Like I'm guessing just from reading this brief article, if you're experiencing high Gs for an extended period of time, that's really bad, you know? So getting the 46.2 was probably like a really brief period of time where he got that 46.2
Probably, but you still
Gs.
gotta get there.
Yeah,
though.
Because
right.
it's considered, yeah, it's considered lethal to be at more than 10 or at around 10 for
Yeah.
1 minute, for 1 minute. So that's a whole minute of,
Yeah.
which is a long time.
Yeah. Oh
really.
yeah. Especially at that high G's.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can black out at like 10 Gs like that, and like as soon as you drop it, I mean you might come back, but I mean if you're flying a plane at that time, that's catastrophic. So
Yeah. It really puts a damper on like if we ever wanted to go to a planet that was a little bit bigger than Earth, because it can really have a big effect on the density of the atmosphere when the planet's just like a bit bigger, a rocky planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, a
not to mention
gravitational pull.
gravity. Yeah.
Do y'all know about the death coaster, the death roller coaster, the euthanasia roller coaster, I guess? Have
No,
y'all heard about that?
I have not.
It's this coaster that it's not like been
Japan?
actually built, but no, I don't know. It's been like, it's just like a thought experiment kind of like, if people wanted to commit suicide, like in an ethical way, for whatever reason, you know, this could be one way to do it. And it's a roller coaster that goes down this steep drop and then just goes through the like basic loop-de-loops, but getting smaller and smaller. And so that increases the G forces in each one. And by like halfway through like the first or second one, the person is most likely passed out. And then by, I forget how many, but they've, you know, figured all that out. But by like the sixth or seventh one, they've encountered so many G's for long enough that they'd probably be dead.
Even like the higher end, like I don't know what to call them, like the best roller coasters or the higher end roller coasters or whatever. Like I don't think too many of them are getting over like maybe like
4
2.5 Gs. Like I don't.
I think 4
Even
is
that
actually kind of standard. Hold on, because I'm gonna look up Busch Gardens because the cheetah hunt at Busch Gardens, I believe, gets that high.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I have
The
no
flip
idea.
flap railway can go up to 12 G's. probably for a very brief period.
Yeah. Wow. But that's got to be like
Yeah,
a
Cheetah
ramp
Hunt
up
is
from.
4G, so
Okay. So that's pretty standard then. I guess 4G's like because tons of people ride that shit and they don't black out. So
no, I'll
I
tell
don't
you
know about
though,
that 12 one.
on some
Jeez.
of even those rides though, I noticed that like in some of the turns and stuff, my vision kind of goes out a little bit. Like I'm not
Yeah.
about to pass out, but I notice that my vision gets gray or it starts to kind of get dimmer, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
So you could probably look up the method that the jet fighter pilots use, and if you do that, you'll probably have improved outcomes. You know, you might be able to like stave that
As
off with the
weird as
right.
it sounds, it kind of feels good. I don't know. It's
Get
weird.
lightheaded. So yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that. That it can be
Well, I mean,
a
is
fun
it like
feeling.
people like they used to like try to choke themselves or whatever to the
Or
point where they
pushing really
black out?
hard on the chest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you used to like. I mean, again, stupid fucking. I'm not even gonna. I
Yes.
don't even want
Yeah.
to go into that. So,
Yeah,
like,
let's not.
like
But yeah, I get what you're
about to
saying though. It
demonstrate. I'm
gives
like,
the body the same effect
yeah.
though. Yeah.
Outro before I forget.
Yeah, definitely don't want to
Sounds good to me.
forget.
But yeah. So, hey, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for watching. This has been Technically Incorrect. I keep saying all the time because I keep forgetting what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm doing here. Do you? No? Okay. Anyway, till next time. Adios.
Uh,
Adios.